There's a a status quo that no one seems to see. Um, it's a, I guess you could say it's an alternate status quo. We see the surface of how society is built right now, and the way people interact and the issues that they talk about and everything. But there's also another status quo that's actually more in control of how things are going on. I guess you could say it's the alternate status quo. You might even say the Illuminati status quo, but it's the shadow status quo, but it's the real status quo of how things are actually working. And I guess I'm particularly speaking to alternate media at this point. Two of the biggest characters in alternate media, which I have listened to over the years, but have found to have some inconsistencies in their philosophies. They represent the true status quo, the shadow status quo, the status quo that keeps us from actually coming to true and full enlightenment about the reality that we actually live in, about what's actually being done to us. You can see it kind of right now in what's happening with the delegates, starting in Colorado, and it's also bled into many other states where the Republican Party just refuses to let the popular vote succeed. You know, they choose the delegates, they shut certain delegates out, you know, and they promote the candidate that they want. That's the actual status quo. But people in the alternate media who are supposedly supposed to help us to see, you know, the behind the curtain, see, you know, the master pulling the puppet strings, they're actually part of that status quo. And I've heard it said that it's like the Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution, you know, where they control the opposition by leading the opposition. And I've really found it to be true. But it's taken me some time to see this, and it's taken me engaging in some very affirmative actions on my own behalf, trying to fight, you know, political corruption and corruption within corporations and nonprofits. It's actually taken me actually getting out there and being proactive, and, you know, really kind of punching the giant in the nose to see, you know, what's actually happening. And I got to tell you, people, I think it's a small majority of us that actually realize what the true status quo is. I'm going to say this, and I don't want to be defamatory, so I'm going to speak in hypotheticals, but it's just my personal experiences of what I've seen and been through that have led me to these conclusions. But two of your biggest alternate media characters right now, Jones and Savage. I've heard Jones talking about, you know, before all of this political stuff started happening with the candidates in the elections and everything, talking about he would never leave America. Well, more and more now, I've heard him start talking about it's time for him to leave. He might leave or would leave, but he's got nowhere else to go, you know, and his whole family's here and what have you. I would postulate, however, that he's giving himself a back door, a safety outlet, because I've noticed inconsistencies in Jones that just make me doubt his sincerity and his integrity. You know, it's the same way Hitler started. Hitler was a double agent. He was first working for the German army, trying to spy on the National Socialist Democratic Party, the Nazis, and then he got so successful in that party, and they started gaining such political power and goodwill from the people, that he actually flipped and became a double agent and started actually leading the Nazis to power. Well, you could kind of look at these characters in the same light. You know, they're like sitting on the fence right now. They're leading the opposition, but at a certain point, if it gets too hot for them and the opposition looks like it's going to win, they could easily switch sides, and none would be the wiser except little peons like me. But it's only because of my detachment from society and my having backed up and just taking a really objective view, standing from the outside looking in, that I can see these things. Most people don't have the time to devote to studying all of this and being absorbed in it to actually chart, what's being said every single day for a couple of years, like me. I've been listening to this stuff in the alternate media as well as mainstream media for about a couple of years now, maybe 2.5 to 3, and almost on a daily basis. So it gives me a very, how would I say? Gives me a very good idea of who's being consistent, who's holding true to what they say is their philosophy, and who's not. And I gotta say that both Savage and Jones have disappointed me in many regards. I would tell you more, but I don't have any real way to prove it or to back it up. But I'll just say that they actually represent the real status quo. When I'm disturbing the hummingbirds out here. But they represent the real status quo, and you're gonna have to wake up to that status quo of what's actually happening, because these characters have captured so many well-intentioned, good-meaning people that really care about this country and really want to do right and want the right things for us and posterity, their children, their families, their friends. They've captured so many people with their rhetoric and their supposed philosophies that basically they function, I believe, as Pied Pipers. But they've captured so many people that were they to take a turn for the worse, I'm afraid so many people are following so closely that they would just go off the edge of the cliff with them. And that, I believe, is what their purpose is. Both Jones and Savage, I believe they are Pied Pipers for the establishment. However, they represent the status quo of the alternate media, those forward-thinking minds, those minds that like to look behind the scenes and see the real truth and figure things out, what they used to call conspiracy theorists, who are actually just very intelligent people that use critical thinking and logic. They are there for those people to scoop them up and then mislead them at the right time when the moment is most critical and take them over the edge of the cliff, without going over themselves, of course. But it appears to me now that so many people have woken up and they've done such blatant things in this, political campaign with the delegates and, pushing Ted Cruz on the Republican side and pushing Bernie Sanders out of the way for Hillary on the Democratic side, and Trump being the most popular candidate probably amongst the two parties, left standing in the wings saying, hey, I'm being left behind, I'm being robbed, I think they've pushed it so far that it has awoken a great mass of people. And this is the most critical time when Jones and Savage are to fulfill their duties. They are charged with scooping up this popular discontent, wrangling it and corralling it in the direction that the establishment really wants. So the Pied Pipers, this is a critical moment, and I'm making this video so that people will understand that they need to just see the truths inside themselves. Listen to everybody, listen to everyone, both sides, what everyone says, but decide in your own heart and mind what is right. Don't listen to a supposed leader who, is just there to actually lead you, misdirect you in a way that's going to benefit the establishment and not you. Obey your own personal truths, obey your own God-given insights. Because this is a critical juncture right now, and this is when Jones and Savage are going to be most useful in taking the people who are really outraged about the cheating and the scamming that they see in our political system. It's their time to be the Pied Pipers and misdirect us and lead us in the wrong way. So I'm going to explain it in the blog post that I have a little bit better. It's hard for me just to explain it, verbally like this, because I'm so passionate about the issue. But you need to understand that there are two status quos. There are two status quos, both in the mainstream establishment, in the mainstream media, and in the alternate media as well. And those status quos are both establishment run. think, follow your heart, and don't listen to men. Listen to what's inside of you. Listen to the spirit that dwells in you. Listen to what you know to be right and wrong, your own conscience, and obey that. Not some man. Obey what you know to be true.